Today I will try to answer the question if Tesla is in a bubble or not. And I think this is a very important question that the market is right now trying to find the answer for, because it will tell us a lot about where the broad market is going next. Are we going to roll over, or are we going to keep rallying higher, especially in the NASDAQ? So let's jump right into it. And when we take a look at this chart, this is a chart of Tesla. It's a daily chart. It is very easy to come to the conclusion, yes, look at it, price is going vertical, this must be a bubble. But if we then take a look at this chart, which is also a daily chart for Tesla, but it is a logarithmic one, and all of a sudden it looks a lot more reasonable, and we have something we can compare the current move to the upside to, because we have seen similar price action in 2013. So the question is, are the same forces that were present back then when the stock here took off currently present and can explain this move? Because if we are in this phase, then we are not in a bubble, because the price did not collapse afterwards. So to answer that question, let's take a look at the following chart here. This is, I wish it was prettier, but this is the best that I could find. This is a chart that shows us Tesla's quarterly revenue. And this bump here, it looks teeny tiny now, but back then it was a significant bump, because in September 2012, quarterly revenue for the company was something like 50 million. But 2 quarters later, the March quarter in 2013, revenue spiked to 560 million. This caused the stock to go vertical, because the market finally realized, oh, people are actually buying the Model S, because this is the ramp that took place during that time. So, but since then, since 2014, and let's assume revenue quarterly here was about 600 million. Quarterly revenue went up to 7.2 billion in the March 2019 quarter. And if we go, so it more than tenfolded since 2017. It's actually 12x during this time here. Let's go back to the price chart and see what has Tesla, the stock, done during that 10x, that 12x that happened during this 6-year period from 2014 till the end of 2019. And the stock has done nada, nothing. It was sideways for 6 years. I believe it tried to break out here by the end of 2018, but then Elon decided it was a good idea to pull that 420 stunt, which destroyed sentiment in the short term. But eventually fundamentals have just become too strong to keep the lid on top of the price here at the $400 level, and once it broke out, there was no holding back anymore. So I do not believe Tesla is in a bubble. It is simply that price is finally catching up with the fundamentals and the progress the company has made over the last 6 years. Let's talk about the big picture in the industry. The electric motor is way more efficient than an internal combustion engine, because if we burn gasoline in an ICE car, 80% of the energy released we lose to heat. And if we compare that to an electric motor, 80 to 90% of the energy stored in a battery is actually used to move the vehicle forward. And that is the reason why you can get Ferrari-like performance stats in an electric vehicle with a price tag of currently maybe 50K or so. And the tendency is that price will come down. And at some point, ICE cars are simply not competitive anymore. So 5 years down the road, maybe 10 years down the road, the majority of new vehicles will be electric vehicles. And the market leader in that industry is clearly Tesla. And the brand value of Tesla is stronger than what people believe. Because if you just look how loyal a Tesla customer is, the bumper is falling off, and they have to go to these service centers because Elon sends out the first batch of vehicles too early. They still love their car and say, hey, I don't care that the bumper is falling off. I'm still buying a Tesla. That tells you all you need to know about the brand value. And when people complain about the build quality of a Tesla, I think it is very short-sighted to focus on a bumper, because that is the problem that is easier to figure out. In the end, the vehicle, the outer parts of the vehicle, Tesla always gets right, but it takes them a little bit because Elon is simply pushing the envelope, and he wants to get these cars out as quickly as possible, make mistakes, but learn from each mistake, and then they become more efficient, and they can build these gigafactories quicker and cheaper than the one before. So they are innovating at a rate that is so much faster than any of these old OEMs, and I have a hard time seeing them being able to catch up. And it is especially when we look at how does an electric vehicle function, because it's one thing to develop the electric motor, which the old school OEMs are not capable of yet. I mean, to the same quality that Tesla is. But you also need to figure out the battery, and that is the part where it is very hard for them to catch up. They also need the talent to have software engineers, because the software in a Tesla is so much more sophisticated than the software in an old school vehicle. And these OEMs, they don't even have a software department in there, at least not a sophisticated one that could compete with Tesla. So to even get this department up and running, and to hire the talent, if you need really high-end quality software developers, do you think they will go to Ford, or do you think they would rather take a job at Tesla? So I think it will be very hard for them to catch up on the software side of things. And things will most likely get worse, because if we take a look at the pipeline, it is not that the Model Y just came out, that the Cybertruck is next, then the Semi and the Roadster. Elon has also figured out how to create solar roofs that don't look shitty anymore. And I think there is a lot of pent-up demand for people who have high-end houses that wanted to have a solar roof for a long time, but they didn't do it because they just thought it was ugly. And it is just a matter of how quickly can Tesla ramp up until this becomes a significant portion of their business. At least I believe that. And I think this is totally underestimated by Wall Street. And these Mickey Mouse analysts will slowly get it that there is a totally new component to Tesla's business model. And the more revenue Tesla generates, the quicker it can build new gigafactories, and the quicker it can learn how to build them more efficiently, and the wider the gap between Tesla and everybody else. So this is important. Another potential milestone that we will see soon is the 1,000,000-mile battery. And if Tesla figures out how to create a battery that lasts 1,000,000 miles, it implies that you have way more life cycles where you can charge the battery over and over again. Then it becomes plausible that every Tesla on the road becomes part of a virtual power plant. And what I mean by that is Tesla has already the software that allows a battery to communicate with the grid, buy electricity from the grid when price is cheap, and then sell electricity back to the grid when prices are high and demand is high, because everybody is turning on their AC. So imagine you plug your Tesla in, and then it makes money for you trading electricity. And I don't know how much money there is to be made trading electricity, but what if it can generate enough income to make its own car payments? All of a sudden, the value proposition of your vehicle totally changes. And there's another what if. what happens if Elon actually figures out autonomy, so that your car does not just make money when it's plugged in and becomes a trader of electricity. It also makes money for you when it's not plugged in and you're not in it, because it's driving itself and passengers around, generating income that you can then use to pay, or the car can then use to pay itself off. I mean, think about it. If we go down that rabbit hole, it is crazy what happens to the value proposition of your car if it actually generates income that can be used to pay for itself. I mean, it's amazing. I'm not saying this will happen, but it is something that could happen. And the virtual power plant is obviously closer to come to reality than autonomy. And I don't know if it will ever happen, if it might take 2, 5, 10 years. I don't know. But it is something that we need to keep in mind. But let's be more pragmatic and focus on some short-term catalysts. We know that the company will announce earnings sometime in July. It is probably going to be the 22nd, could be the 29th. But if the company then announces a profit, the stock would become eligible to become part of the S&P 500. And that matters because then all the index funds are forced to buy the stock. Also, there is going to be an avalanche of upgrades because the majority of analysts have missed the boat. So the higher price goes, the more pressure there is for those analysts to upgrade the stock. Also, on September 22nd, there's going to be Battery Day. I hope that Elon will show us the million-mile battery there. I hope that we will hear hints about Tesla becoming a virtual power plant. But I don't know. But it is definitely a catalyst that we need to keep in mind. I also believe there is a potential catalyst when Biden gives us details about his infrastructure bill. And I believe that Biden is making a huge move to the left. So I think we will get like something like a new Green Deal, maybe a light version of what Sanders was proposing. And if that were to come to fruition, the market will price some of that in, because it is now not a given anymore that Trump will be reelected. It is way closer than it was before the Corona crisis. So the market will take that into consideration. And here, the ride-sharing one, I think this is the short-term catalyst with the most oomph behind it. Because if the ultimate plan is to launch robo-taxis, a logical step to do ahead of that is to launch a human ride-sharing service like Uber, like Lyft, just to test your software and also to spread the word and to give these people the ability to test drive the stock, to test drive the vehicle. Because the majority of people on the planet have never been in a Tesla. And it has been the case that everybody who has bought a Tesla has convinced 3, 4 other people to also buy a Tesla once they experienced how it feels to drive a Tesla, because it is something out of this world. Once you are in it, you say, oh my God, now I get it. And what is so interesting is the people who own the vehicle are likely to also own the stock. So it becomes a self-reinforcing mechanism. So I think ride sharing makes so much sense. So what does all this mean for the stock? Can we still buy it? I know it is incredibly hard to buy a stock when it is up, like shoots up vertically the way Tesla has. I think we can still buy it. I am still buying it, but I'm using options to do it. And if you want to know how I do it, when I do it in real time, you can find more information about us on quantyeti.com. If you have a question for me personally, hit me up on StockTwits. My handle is @OptionBob.